It's the Daylight Midnight Show.
Hello and welcome to the Daylight Midnight Show. My name is Greg and today we find out whether I'm closer to a shark or a goldfish. But before we get to that, let's start the show with a rhyming couplet. When I woke up this morning, we had a bit of frost. The dentist is expensive, so perhaps I should have flossed. And I promise you that is the last time I'm going to refer to my dental problems. Right, let's bring in DM, the Daylight Midnight Monkey, then to do his security guard duties. He is going to sit here and make sure that no one can sneak in behind me and check what's on the expensive display cabinet, because on there we have the answer to this week's quiz, which I'm about to set for you. Oh, come on. Every week we have to go through this. I either need to build a shelf for this or just preset this, but then if I preset it I worry that you think I'm cheating somehow. Please stay there. Okay, so I am going to give you a little clue to a mystery object that you might have in your own house, probably not this week, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that you would have one of these. You've got to work out what the answer is, and if you get the answer right, you award yourself a prize. So this week's clue is this. It's bigger than a sock, it's smaller than a shed, and with a fair bit of practice, you can play it. It's bigger than a sock, it's smaller than a shed, and with a fair bit of practice, you can play it. Have a think about that. I'll give you the answer at the end of the show, and if you get the answer right, you award yourself a prize. So let's move on to the Cartoonimator then, which now has its own... Before we do that, actually, I have what I'm calling some friendly feedback from people based on last week's show and the series so far. So this is stuff that people have either said to me after watching the videos or they've sent me messages about. Most of these referring to specific things from last week. Why did you keep picking things out of your mouth? Were there stray hairs from your extreme haircut stuck in your mouth? I've watched a bit of it back and I keep doing this during the show. The reason I'm doing that, I'm not picking something out of my mouth, is because everything I'd written down about food was on separate bits of paper and I was licking my finger to make it wet to facilitate ease of page turning. Point number 2, I mentioned last week the Cartoonimator drawing involved birds. And I said I wanted to do a proper drawing of a goose in flight, but I couldn't do that, so I just did like a V to represent a bird. Geese in flight are easy to draw. You just draw concord and add feathers. Thank you for that art lesson. The trouble is, I can't draw planes either. And also last week I talked about when I used to eat cheese and onion sandwiches in an office, and I said it was quite unfair on the people around me. This message came in. I remember working with you, and actually the cheese and onion sandwiches were preferable to the days you used to eat tins of mackerel. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. This was a time when my own taste satisfaction was more important to me than the welfare of the people around me. So I used to put a jacket potato in the microwave and then open a tin of mackerel and pour on the top, and it used to stink. So I do apologise for that. So with that, we move on to the Cartoonimator, which now has its own theme song, and I've put new strings on this guitar. One part of a sum is called the numerator. Let's see what gets thrown out by Greg's Cartoonimator. When I practice that, I sing it really well, and then the show starts and I play it awfully, but we'll work on that. It's a work in progress. So the Cartoonimator then is a very scientific device, and it absorbs my energy, my memories, the way I'm feeling throughout the week, and it comes up with a drawing, normally quite bad, that explains to you what's been happening since the last show, and then I can pin it up and tell you what it describes. And this week it is a very simple one, because we just have a smiley face to let you know that actually I've had a really good few days. Nothing major has happened, it's just been a nice time spent doing nice things with nice people. I could have drawn on there, to be more specific, a boat, a churchyard and a beach, and some fish and chips, but I'm not that good a drawer, so the smiley face emoji I think just about sums it up, because this has been quite a delightful week all round. So with all that done, the thing I want to talk about this week is, you might remember from previous series, I used to like to do these little online silly personality quizzes, and I would use those for us to come up with like mascots for the show. We ended up with, that's how we got Pogo Dave Penguin as the official show mascot, because I think it was what kind of penguin are you? We did the official seabird of the Daylight Midnight Show, the official ice cream, and I think sandwich filling, which I think was cheese and onion. I maybe confused myself for that. But for no apparent reason yesterday, I thought what we really need is an official fish of the Daylight Midnight Show. So I went online last night and I just typed in, what kind of fish am I? Quiz, question mark. And it gave me a couple of options. The first one it took me to was a really good one that was done by a zoo in Australia. But the trouble is it had about 36 questions. And I thought, well, if I do that one, this show's going to go on for weeks. So I found a slightly smaller one. on the website buzzfeed.com that you might be familiar with. And this quiz was uploaded about 4 years ago, almost to the day actually, by a member of staff called Natalia Lobanova. So there's only a few questions on this. There's multiple choice answers, so I will answer them all honestly. The algorithm will put the answers together and come up with a fish that I am most similar to, apparently, and that will be the official fish of the Daylight Midnight Show, and we'll get a picture of it on the Door of Delights. So the first question we have is, are you a big fish or a little fish? And the options are extremely little, quite little, I'm an average sized fish, or exceedingly large, I'm 6'5", I'm used to being taller than most people, exceedingly large has to be the answer. Question 2. How do you stop people and other animals from eating you? My options for this are, I honestly just taste awful, I'm spiky, I'm extremely good at hiding, or I eat them first. I think I'm just going to be true to life and say that I just taste awful. I have this vision of things swimming up to me, taking a nibble, bleh, and moving away. I now have to choose some scales that I would like. I won't show you this because it probably won't come up very well on the camera, but I've got 4 different fishy scales to choose from. One of them is white, there's a blue one, there's a silver one. I'm going to pick the colourful one. That looks like the scales of a rainbow trout, so I'm going to click on that one for my choice of scales. The next question, what sort of climates do you prefer? Very warm and shallow seas, a lovely freshwater river, just your standard sea, please, or eternal darkness and cold. Describing my soul there. But for the purposes of a nice climate, I do love spending time by the river. I like swimming in rivers, but I think as a fish living there all the time, very warm and shallow seas has to be the choice for me, which I guess is going to point me towards a tropical fish. I now have to choose some lovely seaweed. There are 4 pictures of different kinds of seaweed underwater. I'm going to pick the picture that is bottom right because it reminds me very much of a game that I've played on my son's Xbox, which I think is called Subnautica, where you're in a spaceship that's crashed underwater and you have to explore. It's very relaxing, it's very calming, it's very meditative, and there's beautiful graphics, and the seaweed looks like the seaweed on this one. I now have to choose a way to attract my mate. Being really beautiful, releasing chemicals into the water to let potential mates know I'm horny. Oh, I should have read these questions first. Or I could just lay some eggs and hope someone fertilises them. Or I will do some sort of elaborate performance. Wanting to move on very quickly from this question, I will do some sort of elaborate performance because I'm a bit of a performer and I tend to be elaborate. Choose a way to breathe in your air. Gills, please. Jumping up occasionally and taking in a big gulp of air. Absorbing the H part of H2O, or some combination of the above, please. I suppose a combination would be good because it's giving you choices depending on what environment you're in, but we all want to know what life's like with gills, don't we? So I'm going to click on gills. And finally, in your heart of hearts, what fish do you want to be? And the choices are a beautiful one, a freaky one, a terrifying one, or a tasty one. 100% honesty, I want to be a terrifying fish. So, what kind of fish am I? It's collating the answers, and I am apparently a clownfish. From those answers? And the description is this: you're super frickin' cute. Everyone loves you because of that one Pixar film. You know the one. You probably have the best PR team behind you. Well done on landing that. It's the best thing that happened to the reputation of any fish. I don't feel how that suits the answers I gave. Or my personality at all, apart from the fact that I suppose I do clown around a lot and make people laugh for a living. So, okay, fair enough then. The official fish of the Daylight Midnight Show is, slightly disappointingly, a clownfish, because we're now going to end up with a picture of Nemo on the board. However, the algorithm knows what it knows. I gave the answers I gave, and that's the answer we've got, so we'll stick with it. The official Daylight Midnight Show fish is a clownfish, and we'll have a picture of that next week. So let's do Outfit Roulette then to work out what I'm going to win next week. And I decided for the first time in years to jumble up the Rubik's Cube and resolve it, and you'll notice I got to a certain point after which I forgot what the next stage is in how to solve it. So it's not quite there. So what we're going to do, if it lands sort of that way, we're going to go with the colour in the middle. So the central square is dictating the colour that we'll look at on the Outfit Roulette motherboard. And so the first colour is yellow. So next week I will be wearing my rash vest again, which normally goes under a wetsuit. Over the top of that I will be wearing whatever is in column black, which is a jumper. Wow, that's going to be hot and uncomfortable. And to accessorise all that, we will have whatever's in yellow again. and that will be a baseball cap. So it's rash vest, jumper and baseball cap that I'll be wearing next week. I set a timer, but I'm sure we've gone over. So let's give you the answer then to the quiz this week. Bigger than a sock, smaller than a shed. Almost perfect timing. Shut up! Thank you. Bigger than a sock, smaller than a shed, and with a fair bit of practice you can play it. Well done to you, and award yourself a prize if you worked out that this week's mystery object was a saxophone. I'll see you next week. Have a great 7 days.